if you take someone that has not accomplished what they wanted to accomplish in life, and then you say, hey, you're going to die, I think that the existential angst from that is overwhelming. So first of all, can you see, I feel like I need to start this off by saying, I don't know if you can see my eye. I tried to position myself far from the camera because my right, have you broken a blood vessel in your eye before?
I have. It was when I was in college. No, I'm sorry, high school. And it was because I had engaged in a heavy night of drinking and a resulting violent puking session.
Yes. So
That
like you
popped a blood
deserved
vessel
it.
in my
That sounds like your fault.
You're right. My
Mine,
fault.
I don't understand. I don't know what happened. I think I've been, have we talked about my bike that I bought last year?
We haven't, but I
Okay,
want to stop
I've
real quick. I want to stop because
yes.
so you're starting because you're very self-conscious about what is it? Your right eye. You
Yes.
popped a blood vessel.
Yes.
I can't tell. I think no one who's watching this for the first 2 or 3 minutes that watched this could have told that you have popped a blood vessel, but you're very self-conscious about it. Continue.
Beyond all of my clients today, I did the same thing where I put the camera far away, and then I moved all of like the zoom screen so it was like in this bottom corner so that my eyes covered. Yeah, anyway. Well, I'm glad you
How
can't
did you
see.
pop a blood vessel?
Well, so I don't know. It doesn't hurt, and nothing hurt. But I was looking up, and apparently you can do it through exertion. So I have been. So I bought a.
What type of
Last
exertion
year I
is this?
bought a cycling. I've been cycling. So I bought a nice bike last year, and it was a big. I'm going to avoid talking about the price, but just know that it's an absurdly expensive bike. Okay.
Are you an avid biker? Cyclist?
So the question
Your pause
you should
answers
be
the
asking.
question.
Well,
Your pause
hold on.
answers
The question you should be asking is this bike appropriate for a 41-year-old that would like to lose 5 pounds? I don't know. Is
I
it
don't know if
appropriate
that's
for
ever the appropriate question to ask.
or is it appropriate for someone that's, aspires to be on the Tour de France? And in my case, I think it's appropriate because you never know how fast I might be on that bike. So I got it.
Yeah, I'd
Go
like
ahead.
to. I wonder if I called your wife Allison, I think she might have. I wonder if she has a different response.
So Allison and I, so I had an old bike that was my dad's. I had it on top of my car. This is before we had kids, and I drove it into my garage and destroyed the bike. And then it's been 9 years. I punished myself. I didn't buy the bike for 9 years, and then I said to Allison, "I'd like to buy this bike," and it's a Pinarello is the brand.
Okay,
Because it's Italian. I got to buy an Italian. I can't buy a Trek. You know what I mean? So anyway, so I'm going to buy this Italian bike, and we agree on the price point. She went on vacation, and I bought it at a higher price point than we had agreed on.
but
I thought
barely higher, right?
like $1,000 higher than the price point that she agreed on. Okay, so anyway, here's the bottom line. There's a big fight. I ended up getting this bike, so now I've been having to use it, and so I've been riding more, trying to get into shape, and then I woke up with a burst blood vessel in my eye, and so I think that must have happened when I was riding, pushing it a little bit too hard.
Is this the first time you've ridden it?
I've ridden it 3 times.
Okay.
But I bought it last September. And then I bought it last September, and it didn't come with pedals. You have to buy those separate. And I felt so bad about having spent too much on the bike.
Hold on.
What?
A bike that doesn't come with pedals is like a couch that doesn't come with cushions. What?
But if your bike's gonna be on the Tour de France, you need to pick what kind of pedal you want. You can't just have like those flat pedals. This is slick, man.
I don't understand. I am not an avid cyclist, so this is probably just outside of my Trek bike came with pedals.
Yeah, no. This is a different kind of bike that I've got here.
Uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
anyway, so I felt so bad about it. I didn't buy the pedals. Then it became winter. I eventually got the pedals, and so now I'm trying to get back into it. And
So
so
you bought it last year. Was this like a midlife crisis? I need to do something with my life type of purchase. Was this your Lamborghini purchase?
Rob, this is exactly how I sold it to Allison. I mean,
Yeah, I
she
think
never really
I'm with
bought it,
that.
but that's the pitch is, look, it could have been a Corvette,
Okay.
you know?
So
And I'm
what
going
is
to
that?
have this.
That's like a sales technique. What is that called? Where you start really high,
Yeah.
and then what you actually want is
Yeah.
something I can't remember what it's
Yeah.
called.
I'd like to buy a Maserati. No. Okay. How about a Pinarello? Yeah, that's right.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, so this discussion about my bike riding I think this is a good transition to today's topic. Okay. So what I'd like to discuss, and I think we have to be careful as we discuss this. Okay. What I would like to discuss is how, when people get older, when elite athletes get older, or professionals get older, or politicians get older, how they struggle to give up power. Like how we struggle
Mm.
to recognize when we are no longer able to do the thing that we've always done.
Yes, I think that is. I hear what you're saying. You got to be careful how we talk about it, but I think this makes sense. So we are recording this in early July 2024, not too far after the first presidential debate of
Yes.
2024.
Yes.
And I'd say the headline from that debate was that Joe Biden appeared to be very tired and frail looking. And that
Yes.
was, it reminded me, because I watched it too, and that was my takeaway. And it reminded me of, like you learn in, or I learned in high school, like the first televised presidential debate was Nixon and Kennedy. And
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy looked all young and polished, and Nixon looked all sweaty and nervous. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know anything else about that debate
Right. But that's what stuck.
except for
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
And so I think I've heard people make comparisons to that too, is no one's going to pay attention to what you say if the look isn't
Mm-hmm.
there. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, yep. So just to provide people with some context as to why this is
Yes.
a very germane topic for us.
Yes. So there are a couple of, like, so I was watching the debate, and immediately after, and again, so taking the politics out of it,
Right.
right after the debate, like immediately, all of the Democratic people that were the people that were commenting were saying this is a big deal. The
Yeah.
Democrats have to decide what they're going to do with Biden.
Yep.
They're going to try and replace him.
Mm-hmm.
Or, we think they may have to, whatever. And then the news comes out the next day, and now it's been a week later, and the news is Biden's not willing to step down. He still wants to move forward. And I don't know if he will or not, but at this point, he's still in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thinking about, there was a Republican last year, and I'm spacing on his name. Do you know who it was that a couple of times froze on camera?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is Mitch McConnell, Senator Mitch McConnell.
Yes.
He was the head of the Senate.
Froze on camera, and you would look at that and go,
yeah,
yes. And you would go, hey, probably time to retire. But he retains the seat, wants to retain the seat, which I look at it for both of them and go, man, you're in the twilight of your life. Why would you want to put up, like, why would you want the media circus? Why would you want the criticism? Why would you, why do you retain that role?
right. It does not seem to be like a logical reason for them to want to stay in.
Mm-hmm. And it's true that it's not just in politics, but you see it in sports all the times. All the time athletes keep going, they go longer, right? You have Jordan that comes back and wants to play, after baseball, comes back to basketball, and then comes back to the Wizards and has a terrible couple of seasons. It's like in every sport you see that. Tom Brady, the critique could be stayed a little bit too long, right? There's always this sort of picture of someone not being able to give it up when they should.
Yeah, we see it certainly there. Given the work that you and I do, I think we also see it sometimes with leaders.
Yeah.
in organizations. Like, all right, you had a good run. That run has passed.
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Yes. Yes. So I went and I was looking, I was like trying to find research that ties into this. And what's interesting is that there's not a lot of research on this specific topic.
And
But
the
I would,
topic is
yeah.
like, what's the question we're trying to answer here, Dave? It's like, why does this happen?
Why don't people, the way I was searching it was, why don't high performers give up power
Right.
or their position? Why don't people
Right.
leave their position?
Right.
And so what I did find though was that there is a trend around this idea of in order to get in these elevated positions, you have to have an inflated sense of who you are. Like if you think about politics, I don't care who you are, but if you think that you can run the free world,
Right.
you have a wild sense of personal agency, self-efficacy, right? You think you can
Your
really
ego is
do.
strong.
It's very, very strong.
Right.
And so the same thing, if you're Michael Jordan, your ego about your athletic prowess is strong. If you're Lance Armstrong, right, came back, the whole reason why Lance Armstrong got tagged for EPO was because he retired and came back and then got caught for using. If he had just
Really?
stayed,
I didn't know that.
yeah, he came back and had a couple of bad races at the very end of his career, and it was during that time that the investigations finally caught up with him. So if he hadn't come back, we would never know about all of the APO. We wouldn't know anything about the doping and cycling, right? But he thought he could do it, and he couldn't.
Right. So when you say that, it makes me think a little bit of a conversation we've had before about competition, right? So maybe there is just some there's that competitive drive, that desire to, be the best and retain that title that would drive some of these athletes or politicians to do what they do. Yeah.
So I guess, so here's the question for you. So if that is one, and there's other things that we'll talk about kind of different things that maybe create it. But if we look at it and go, okay, so to get to this place, you have essentially you have to have a distorted sense of who you are.
Right.
What is the role of the people around these leaders to reality test? Like, to me, that sort of feels like that maybe is the problem, is that the people around them are like, yeah, you're still great, man. Like, do they not get feedback? Should there be a mechanism where you tell a higher level leader that they're not a good fit?
So I have a very profound answer to that question. But before I tell you that profound answer to the question, as you were thinking about what you're trying to say, your eyes went up.
Oh, yeah.
And now I can tell that you have a pop blood vessel. I could not tell at all.
Yeah.
But you you're like you put your eyes up real quick, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's a pop blood vessel.
Yes.
So it's a good thing we started this episode acknowledging that you have a pop blood vessel, because if we had to wait till 15 minutes in, then people would definitely be wondering, like, what
you'd be thinking, what happened to that guy's eye? Yeah. Okay, good. Then good.
Back to my profound answer. It's not that profound. So your question was, what's the role of the people around you to tell you, like, hey, I don't think so. It's time for you to go. Well, I mean, if you think about the people who you're talking about, athletes, politicians, others in the public sphere, I mean, they can have all the people around them that are telling them what to do, but ultimately they can do what they want to do. So I don't know. It can be the responsibility of everyone around Lance Armstrong to say, no, like, you're too old. Maybe they knew that he was doping. Like, you're doing all of this.
Yeah.
You're not great, but Lance Armstrong is going to do what he wants to do, and no one can actually tell him not to.
Well, as you were saying,
is there responsibility? Probably, but would that matter to some of these people? I don't think so.
Well, what's interesting about it is, you were talking about, I was thinking, I think Lance probably shouldn't have come back. I think that Jordan probably shouldn't have come back. Right. So there's those examples, but they're still good enough to play because the team there would have been some reality testing if Jordan wasn't good enough to play at all. Like they're not
Right.
going to let a decrepit Jordan go on
Right.
and significantly underperform below the standard of other people. He's performing low for his standard, but not that of others. What makes politics, I think, interesting about it is that there is not a genuine feedback loop.
But it's an election.
But it's an election, so the people will decide, but it's too late at that point if for the Democratic Party, for example, or even for the Republican Party for that example, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, whoever is the person we're talking about, yeah.
Whoever it is, the person that we're talking about, the feedback loop is too long. And the people around these leaders, I think they struggle. I guess it's the only thing I can think about as far as they struggle to give the corrective feedback when it's needed.
Well, especially in politics too, because I mean, outside of an election,
Yeah,
there aren't objective, or there are objective criteria you can evaluate a politician against, but voting is, I would argue, is a noticeably emotional act. It is not a very rational act.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily go. I don't know many people who go and look at someone's voting record to help them decide who to vote for. They look at their personality and then the letter that comes at the end of their name, and that's probably predicting about 90% of the vote.
Yep.
And so I can imagine in those situations, I mean, unless it's a complete cluster, you get a lot of people who will say what they want to say, but at the end of the day, whoever Joe Biden is going to figure out, well, no, I'm going to stick in the race because I think I can do it. And people are either going to leave or they disagree, or they're going to say, all right, well, let's make this happen. It's his decision. It's really no one else's. Whereas I think in like an organizational setting, we do see that, but depending upon the setup of the business, there are people you have to report to, right? There's more objective measures that people are evaluated against that can affect that in certain situations. If you're a publicly traded company, then there's a board, there's a stock price.
Right. People there's quicker feedback.
Yeah. If there's a leader that really sucks or is losing it and people leave, all right, well, that's going to be a cue. So in the business world, there might be a bit more of that immediate feedback that does not exist in the athletic, entertainment, or political arena.
So that's one part of it, which is sort of, can you pass the test to be able to get there?
Right.
And okay, so maybe part of it is you have an inflated sense of self, and because you have that inflated sense of self, you think you can do it when maybe you're not functioning as well as you used to.
Right.
So that's one piece of it. But then the other piece of it that's striking to me is what we were talking about at the very beginning, which is, man, I wouldn't want to put myself in that position. To be a elite performer is exhausting, especially if we think about politics. But in business, it's exhausting. Sports, it's exhausting. And so I was trying to figure out sorry, I'm not giving a thumbs up, but I was trying to figure out what's the allure? And there's a little bit of research showing that they think it's addictive to have the power, to have the ability to influence, to be the person, to be that guy is so alluring that it is an absolute addiction, and people therefore will sort of suffer in pursuit of that feeling of being in power.
That makes sense. If I just think of what we learn about power and the characteristics of people that want that type of influence and authority and power, a lot of folks, even as I think of the job that we do, right, they get into positions of leadership oftentimes for very pro-social, positive reasons, right? I want to help develop and support the next generation of people. I want to make an impact because I think, I can. I want to help my team or organization do something. I want to correct something that I see is going on that I think is negatively impacting people. I think a lot of people get into those positions of power. I think that certainly aligns to politics too. People get into it, maybe not all, but certainly some people get into it because they believe that, they can do something that aligns with their value system. It's going to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think your point makes a lot of sense. The more you find yourself in that environment, particularly if you are, successful, whatever that means,
Mm-hmm.
then the more you kind of believe the hype about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I can do that. Look what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that's the part that is a bit more alluring, intoxicating, and can cause people to forget maybe why
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to get involved in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that that's the same? Is the same mechanism present? You were talking about that, and I was thinking about if I think about anything that I do, am I at some level addicted to every part of my job is heavy feedback, right? Like as consultants,
Sure.
I have, in a day, I will have 5 or 6 interactions with clients. And the feedback is always, it's not for any consultant. The feedback is always, you're adding a lot of value. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Thank you for your time. It's a very like, you're the best type of feedback that we get from clients.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do, like if I do YouTube or we do this podcast, the goal is to eventually have an audience that says, you guys are really cool. We like to listen to you. This is entertaining, or we're looking for that. So I guess as you're talking, I was thinking, well, maybe that is a universal, like, do we create careers or behaviors really because we're wanting that? Is that positive regard addictive for everybody? That was a long-winded statement. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
I don't know what the hell you're trying to say. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, it makes sense. So I would say that makes sense to me. It's, most people want to be viewed in high esteem, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, particularly if they think that they're good at something, they want other people to understand that about them as well, regardless of what that is. It could be something related to a career or a hobby or something else.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, if we didn't think that we could do this podcast or that we sucked at doing it, we probably would never have started doing it.
Right. Right.
And so there is some, to the point we're making earlier, there is some ego to anyone who does something that's a bit different or extra work, that they can do it. Now, not everyone's successful in doing those things, but I think a little bit of that confidence has to be there to do it. But for those who do it and are successful, I think it does reinforce for them the feedback that they get.
I just was thinking about it because I came into this podcast, with this idea of, we're talking about power and like, why can't people let go of power, with a pretty negative view of people that can't let go of power. Like, that's my mindset. When I look at a politician that goes up there and is clearly like past their time, I look at it and go like, man, just give it up. Like, what are we doing here? And I view it very negatively. But then I, as you were talking about this, or they were talking this idea of addiction, I wonder if it's present in everybody. Just everybody is not on CNN being scrutinized for their every behavior. You know what I mean?
Definitely. So I think part of it is that I think that initial reaction you have is the initial reaction I would have too, is, whoever we're talking about, a political leader, an organizational leader, someone on a team, an athletic or sports team that I like, that won't give it up and is still around. When they're not performing and you can see it, I think it's very normal to say, get the hell off the stage.
Yeah.
Like, my goal is to win a game. My goal is to have my business be financially successful. My goal is for my the political views that I have, for whoever represents that, to win. My goal is not to have any one person win. And so when I think people get, again, convinced of the hype, they can be slower to leave. And for a lot of people, at least I'll say for myself, I get very frustrated when that happens. Like, no, move on. It's time to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But another thing that occurs to me as we talk about this is, So what are some of the other reasons? We talked about people being competitive. You were talking about Lance Armstrong before. We talked about Joe Biden again. I'm not either of their biographers, and so I might be wrong here, but my sense, if we use those two as examples, their identities are very much wrapped up in their respective careers. I mean, Joe Biden has been a politician. I've seen pictures, right, since like the 70s.
Yes.
Lance Armstrong, to be as good as he has, I mean, he was riding a two-wheeler where I'm probably still like learning to walk.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry,
I was going to say that this is, I would say, where there's the most research is about over-identification with your career. And that is a big part of it, is that it becomes all of who you are. It is your entire personality. And so then when you give it up, you're like, who am I?
What do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the thing that's been going through my head as we talk more about this is if I had to guess, that would be the biggest reason why people, there are a lot of other incentives that could be there, but I think about this when I even just talking to my dad who recently retired. He and I started talking about this a while ago, and he's a retired family practice physician. And so we talk about, for the first, almost third of his life, right until he was like 30 years old, you go to school. He went to high school, went to college, then went to med school, and then residency, all that other stuff, right? So he's not actually doing the work for a while, but the first third of his life is just school.
Yeah.
And then the next is actually doing that work. So as he turned, I think it was 65 and nearing retirement, what is someone, especially someone with a job like that, where it takes such an investment of your time and energy to even prepare for it. And it's, you get very invested in it because you're taking care of people and affecting their lives. What do you do afterwards?
I'm going to derail this conversation, but I have a theory about retirement that I would like to share with you.
Do it.
I, first of all, am terrified of retirement. Like I can't think of anything worse, and I get anxiety about the idea of retirement because. So here's what I think happened. This is my theory: is that you work your whole life. And to try to be comfortable. And I think about like in my career, like I start off and I go to school and I'm like, I'm going to eventually, like make some money, and I'm not going to be always worried about. I remember gassing at my car and looking at the price of the gas and seeing it go and being like, oh my God, how much is it going to cost for me to load up my Ford Focus on gas? And I'm like, I eventually want to have a job where I'm not so worried about the price of gas. And so you're able to sort of like financially do things where, I'm not worried about the gas. And then maybe I can, it's uncomfortable for me to mow the lawn, so I could hire a landscaper or maybe I'm uncomfortable in my house, so I can get a bigger house, or maybe whatever. Like you can, I'm worried about whatever school, and I can protect myself by paying for private school for my kids or whatever. Or maybe I don't know what it is for everybody, but there's like things that we worry about, and we can protect ourselves financially. And you work really hard to find ways to protect yourself. Go ahead. What we're going to say.
For me, what you're talking about, the gas thing, I think my wife and I have talked about this before. I remember when I first could stop paying attention to the grocery store bill. That was my thing. It's like, okay, like, I'm not going to go all out, but I don't have to add up in my head what I'm buying.
Right.
To make sure that I'm not super surprised.
Yes.
When I go up to the cash, to the checkout line.
Yes.
That was my thing.
Yes. It's so when you're like early on in your career, that's maybe what you're trying to figure out. Like, how do I remove that anxiety? But I think as you progress in your career, now you're maybe worried about what retirement looks like financially, or what your kids, you can be able to pay for your kids' college. Or I think we always have like a thing that we are pursuing, and that anxiety drives us forward. And I feel like for a lot of people, when you retire, they have the resources to do nothing. They have the resources to cover everything. They're not worried about anything. And now it is just without anxiety, I think you get depressed. The absence of anxiety is depression. And I feel like at retirement, people have the ability to remove all anxiety. And then I think it just leads to depression. What do you think about that theory?
I mean, I guess, I don't know. Maybe to me, I guess I'm getting hung up on the anxiety. I guess it's how do you define what that is? It's, so I don't know that I would say it's the absence of anxiety is depression. Maybe that is true. And that's just a clinical or counseling psychology framework that I'm unfamiliar with.
That's a David Kohlrausch interpretation of that's a David Kohlrausch interpretation of the literature. Yes.
But I think in alignment with that, like some, literature from my background in organizational psychology, it's, what are your goals?
Yes.
So what are you striving toward? And, when you strive towards something, it can be a bit anxiety provoking because you don't know if you're going to be able to get there or not, but you have a focus.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the other lens I'd have on it based on what you're saying is when you are retired, what are you focused on?
Right.
What do you get to strive toward? What do you get to be excited about? Vacations are great. I mean, I'm certainly the first one to say, plan all the vacations that you want and you can, as you're able to. But I can imagine, that's almost the stereotype. What are you going to do when you retire if you've done well for yourself, right? And you have some sort of savings. Oh, I'm going to travel.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what are you going to do like in year 2 and every year after that? Because for most people, you're not just going to go on like a consistent cruise around the world for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's your goal?
Yes. Yeah. I think we're saying the same thing. I think you're saying it in a nicer way. Like you got to be excited. That's usually on brand. Yeah. Because I think, like for me, I would position your goals are anxiety producing, right? Sure. So yeah, I guess that's maybe a better way to say it is you cannot, if you think you're going to retire and just play golf in
perpetuity. Yeah.
In perpetuity, I think you're going to be miserable unless your goal is to make the senior PGA Tour. Then I think it would work. Right. But if you're just like, I'm going to just veg for the next 30 years, that's not going to work.
I can imagine that some people, when they heard you say the prospect of retirement, stresses you out.
Yeah.
Some people might've thought, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Like, I can't wait to retire.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah.
And maybe this conversation has helped people better understand that. What I'd also would say is when I talk to people about retirement and they say the same thing, my sense is that what they want is the financial wherewithal or stability to do what they want to do, right? It's the autonomy and their control of their time that they want. It's not necessarily that they want to retire and then just veg out or play golf all day. I mean, maybe some people do, but I think most people just want to be able to do what they want to do with their time, and they equate retirement with that ability a lot more than I just don't want to do anything anymore.
I'm glad that you said you're annoyingly correct about this. Yes, that is what I meant. I like the idea of not having to work,
right?
Because I'm financially whatever, don't have to worry about it. I'd be happy with that. Yeah, it's the waking up and being like, what are you gonna do today? I don't know. That's terrifying.
Same. I think that's especially true for people who, again, like these kind of looping back the conversation, all these high performing people. Like you're just used to always like going to the next thing and achieving a lot and either achieving it or not, and then kind of raising yourself back up to try again.
Yeah.
If you don't have that.
Yeah. Which is a good segue because if we talk about, like I said, there's a lot of research about, it's really about losing somebody's whole identity, whole personality. And the related research is oftentimes people that don't give up power view it like it's a zero-sum game. Like if you're not in power, you're nothing.
Yeah.
That's it. And so, it almost makes me think like the solution is to have baked in something that you're going to do right away. You know what I mean? Like if you told Lance or Michael Jordan or whoever it is, this is what your career looks like, and you're excited, and they were excited about that other thing, they'd be able to pivot pretty quickly. Right.
What's the
But if you
goal?
just said, yeah, you got to have some kind of goal that you're moving to. It reminds me of, as we're talking about this, like being able to transition late in life, it reminds me of the, Eric Erickson's stages of development.
Mm-hmm.
And the last stage is generativity, which is about like finding ways to give back, finding ways to support people, versus stagnation, which is where you just sort of sit there. And I think that it's funny because I usually, like when you're in school, like my arc of learning was you get in school and you think that all of these, sort of foundational psychologists know everything. And then you learn their theories. And then I at least maybe my personality, but I go, these are all stupid. Like Freud, I go, Freud is nuts. He's doing too much cocaine, smoking too much cigars, and he had a sexual fixation. The guy's nuts.
Both can be true.
Both can be true. And then as my career has progressed, it's amazing how often I go like, hey, that Freud guy wasn't so far out there. You know what I mean? Or like you have kids and you're like, oh, I can totally see how he got where he got when it comes to children.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Eric Erickson's stages of development. It felt too rigid to me. And I'm like, oh, what's he really talking about? But, as you apply that to those people that are high performance and figuring out what to do next, I do think there's a part of it which is keep yourself occupied and challenged, have a goal, and then also be at a place where you feel like you can give back.
Yep.
But I think that is a difficult transition. I don't think you can just go, okay, so my job is to give back. I think you have to be in a psychological place where you're ready to give back. Does that make sense? So just bear with me. But so if you take someone that has not accomplished what they wanted to accomplish in life, and then you say, hey, you're going to die, I think that the existential angst from that is overwhelming.
Right.
And so their reaction is, I need to do more shit because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I think that's the anxiety that's created there. Versus if you tell someone at the end of their life who's done the things that they want to do,
whatever those things are,
you're going to die. They go, that's fine. I want to share more of what I've done. I want to teach other people. They can give it up more than someone who's at the end of their life white knuckling it because they have anxiety.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I get that. Yeah. I had never thought about it that way before. That maybe part of the reason why, so make sure I'm hearing what you're saying. Part of the reason why people may hang on longer is they feel like they have more, or they've not achieved what they want to achieve yet.
So I didn't even connect that dot. I was just thinking about it. I was thinking, okay, so what's the optimal way to retire? And I think that it's to have goals and to give back. And then I was thinking, well, that fits well with Erickson's stages. And then I'm just sort of putting it back to, so I hadn't had the formalized thought, but I do think that makes sense, that maybe part of why people can't give up their identities is because they're insecure about what they've accomplished in those roles, despite the fact that the performance may have been exceptional.
Sure. Right. It could be just, their goals are entirely too lofty, or something else. Because I can see that, where if you feel like you've not achieved something and you're not ready to get back yet because you still want to be an active participant. It also occurs to me that a lot of this, what we're talking about folks who are achieving some level of success. And there are a lot of people, for a variety of reasons, that, are probably not thinking about any of this at all, because, their job, whatever it is just a way to get by. Like their identities are less. I know people like that as well, even in my family. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm doing this job so I get money, I can support my family, and that's the goal.
Right. That's the thing.
And then when I'm ready, when I can do that, I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah. We are arguably, sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I was saying, and for them, it's maybe a bit more comfortable just hanging out for a while because they've achieved the goal and they're not necessarily striving for, something else, at least immediately.
Yeah. Or they could arguably, they have a healthier relationship with their work. Like it's a part of their not everybody's identity is wrapped up in their job.
Yep.
Their job might allow them to do the things that they want to do outside. And so for them to end the job is great because they can keep working on the other things that they're doing with their family or friends or, you know, other goals, aspirations, activities.
So I think that's,
you know
the
what I
other
mean?
thing.
That's, yeah.
We are probably thinking of examples of people. I didn't say that you and I are probably similar. It's our identities, given our educational backgrounds, or we're a bit more tight with our, professional identities, and maybe some other people are. At least I am.
Yeah.
And so, how we see it would be different than someone whose professional identity is not as big a part of who they are.
And I think so that brings us, I know we're about out of time, but that's the last thing that the research would say leads to people hanging on too long, which I can definitely relate to, is that they experience a loss of value, like intrinsic value.
Oh yeah.
Right. So part of it is if I quit, then my status is zero and I mean nothing to the world. And the other part of it is if I quit this job, then I look around and I'm go like, well, I'm worth nothing. And so they want to hang on to right. And because they're overly invested in their work,
as a way to demonstrate their worth.
Yeah. To themselves, not just to the world.
Yeah. Again, that resonates with me a lot too. I think I would have to imagine a lot of people go into psychology, right? They want to be helpful, and it's a way to be helpful and make money doing that. And then if you're not doing that, you can still be helpful, I guess, but you're not necessarily viewed as someone who people are going to go to as much, at least formally speaking.
Yeah. I find myself even now in my career, when people go, like when there's things that I think when there's moments I think I can be helpful and people go somewhere else, like even if it's outside of work, I'm like, hey, I'm the guy.
Yeah.
That's, hey, what are we talking about? I'm empathetic. Come on, ask me the question. Do you know what I mean? And so I think it's the same thing.
That's definitely that is a thought that goes through my head, and I don't like that it goes through my head, but it goes through my head. It's like, well, why didn't you ask me?
Yeah.
Why wasn't I? And then it goes back to, I'm the nerdy fat kid that no one wants to pick when they're playing kickball. And I'm like, no, dude, you got to get over it.
Yeah. All right, good. I know we got to go. I want you to know that I went through the rest of this podcast, and I think I never looked up once to protect against showing my.
No, you did. You did look up, because it was a blinding redness that emerged from your side of the screen. So I definitely, you should look this up if you've never seen it. There is, I think it's a lizard that, as a defense mechanism from predators, can shoot blood out of its eye. It's a weird thing.
Really?
Have you seen that lizard before?
No.
Look it up. Your eye looks like that lizard.
Thank you, Ron. It's good to see you. I do feel like a total leper. Like when I'm walking around, I'm always like trying not to. So
you need a patch.
Anyway, I need a patch. All right. Good to talk to you.
You too, Dave. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Bye.